Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to one and all. My name is Shweta and I am a research associate at the Agro Research Center, AERC Pune. On behalf of the AERC team, I warmly welcome you to this special guest lecture organized on the occasion of National Farmers' Day at our very own Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics. Thank you for joining us as we reflect on the vital contribution of India's farmers. Well, as we all know, this day is celebrated across the country as National Farmers' Day or Kisan Divas, a day dedicated to honoring the tireless efforts of our Annadatas, or the farmers who feed our nation. Indian agriculture, the backbone of our economy, has evolved from a deficit sector to a surplus one. Today, it contributes about 16% to GDP, employs nearly 46% of the country's workforce, and ensures food security for 1.4 billion people. Despite policy support through various initiatives, several challenges exist, such as climate risks, fragmented land holdings, price volatility, and farmer distress. Against this backdrop, today's lecture focuses on a critical issue, agricultural price policy. To begin the program, I would like to invite Professor Jayanti Kazare, in charge of the Agro Economic Research Center, Pune, to deliver the opening address.
Thank you, Shweta. Good morning to all of you, and I welcome Honorable Vice Chancellor, today's guest speaker, Professor Sekhar, faculty, students and friends. So as Shweta has already said, 23rd of December is remembered as it is birth date of Chaudhary Charan Singh, who was Prime Minister of India in 1979-80. So during a short period of time, he was the Prime Minister. It is also remembered as or called as Farmers' Day because of Chaudhary Charan Singh's passion and contributions towards the farmers of India. So that is why we call it a Farmers' Day and remember this as a Farmers' Day. For a research institute and university like Gokhale Institute, I feel that the most appropriate way to remember this, to commemorate this, is by deliberations and interactions relating to agricultural sector of India, and by remembering the contributions of the farmers towards the sector and as well as the economy. Because we all know what happens when there is food deficit, what happens when there is food inflation. It affects whole of the economy. And that is why it is very important to deliberate on policies relating to farmers, because it will not only lead to welfare of farmers, but it is also going to benefit the economy as a whole. We have with us today Professor Sekhar, and he will be deliberating with us. He will be sharing his insights on policy support to the farmers. We all know that there are various policy instruments like income support is there, then subsidies are there. We often keep on talking about subsidies. Income support is there, extension activities are there. So out of all these policy instruments, price support is one of that is very important policy instrument, because when you go to the farmers and ask them what is most important for you, so they say that getting remunerative prices is very important. It is that most important thing. So that is why he will be sharing his thoughts on price policy support. But before we take the program ahead, I would like to spend 2 minutes on this network of AERCs. So some of you might be knowing that there exists a network of agroeconomic research centers. So right after the independence, that is 1947, a proposal was put forth by Professor V.K.R.V. Rao, the noted economist, and he was also instrumental in establishment of institutions such as IG and also ISEC. So he put forth the proposal of establishing a research center research centers across the country for carrying out empirical research in the agricultural sector. So this proposal was accepted, and initially in 1954, 4 agroeconomic research centers were established. The center which we have in Gokhale Institute is one of the oldest, that is, it was established in 1954. So last year we celebrated this milestone as it completed 70 years of its existence. Other 3 centers which were established were one in Chennai, one in Shantiniketan, and one in IG, from where Professor Sekhar comes. So after that, other centers were also established across the country. Now there are 15 centers. Now the importance of these centers is that it is a network, one of its kind, a unique network. So all these centers work on various issues relating to the agricultural sector and farmers. We evaluate the schemes of the central government, Ministry of Agriculture, and give our recommendations, policy suggestions to the government. So it is unique. The network is unique in the sense that insights from field, from all the states, go towards the report which is prepared, a consolidated report. So for example, if we are working on PM Kisan scheme, then each state will work on the PM Kisan scheme and submit its report, and it will get coordinated, and the policy implications will be submitted to the central government. So that is one of its kind, the network. As I said, Professor Sekhar belongs to the agroeconomic research unit of IG, and I'm sure his insights and his views and his lecture will be very fruitful, especially for the agribusiness students and MA students. For agribusiness students, we have a paper on policy framework this semester, so I'm sure that this will be very useful, and you can deliberate, you can interact with Professor Sekhar after his lecture is over. I hand over the mic to Shweta for the further deliberations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor. I now invite the Vice Chancellor of Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, Professor Umakant Dash, to formally welcome and felicitate our chief guest, Professor C.S.C. Sekhar, and offer his remarks.
Sekhar, the colleagues and dear students. Of course, this gives me immense pleasure to give the opening remark on such a specious occasion, the Farmers' Day. And I'm happy that our center is organizing this Farmers' Day to reiterate the contribution of the farmers, as rightly pointed out by Sweta. I think in spite, even after 75 years of independence, the dependence, or whether it is livelihood, whether it is employment, or whether it is GDP, the contribution of the agriculture sector is significant. And when we talk about farmers, we remember them as annadatas. And today is again, it's of course is a day we remember Chaudhry Charan Singh, who has contributed significantly, who stood for the farmers and made many changes that is going to that benefited the farmers. So it is not just a day to commemorate, but also a day to reflect, day to discuss, deliberate the issues and challenges the agriculturists or the farmers are even today confronting, whether it is the changes in the environment, because of course that is what is more bothering many of us, whether it is price, which of course Mr. Sekhar is going to deliberate extensively, whether it is giving them enough space to the market, because when we talk about as economists, of course, always we talk about what, why, and how, for whom. These very questions are also troubling the farmers. What to produce and how to produce, for whom to produce, because even today you'll find there are places where they are producing enough and they are throwing on the roadside of the highways. We have experiences, instances, whether it is tomato or potato, and so many things, the vegetables, particularly perishable product. And on the other hand, you will see there are opportunities. I think the government has initiated many schemes in the last couple of years, whether it is to ensure income or to ensure their products being or the harvest being protected through the Fasal Bima Yojana or through the Kisan Samman Nidhi, or to promote organic farming, or even marketplace, which we call the e-Nam. So these are some of the facilities which are very much there when we talk about the agriculture sector. But the ground reality is different when you go to the rural areas or when you interact with the farmers. Even today, many of the farmers, they are not aware of the schemes that are offered or that are available for them. Forget about taking advantage of the schemes. So therefore, as an academic institution, it is, of course, Gokhale Institute is known for its action-oriented research. Always we talk about livelihood, we talk about farmers, we talk about the issues and challenges or socio-economic problems. But always, I think, the issues around farming community or the farmers was always at the heart of the research and activities that we have undertaken at Gokhale Institute. So as a research institute, it is therefore our not only responsibility to create or generate evidence and supply the evidences to the government so that this is going to be properly used to formulate the policies. But also sensitize, because that's the very purpose of academic institutions. Through our publications, through our interactions, through our movements, we have to sensitize as much as possible. Even I think recently, of course, NCR has done a study, that is the impact of the Prime Minister's Sadak Yojana, where through which we connected almost all the villages. The very idea was it would help them to empower them. It would help them to get better price for the products. It would create employment opportunities. Yes, the result says to some extent it could be able to accomplish the set objective, but still far away from then the desired outcome. So any particular scheme you take, you'll see the number of beneficiaries who should get benefited is much lesser than the number of beneficiaries, or the number of beneficiaries who are getting benefited much lesser than what it should have been. So I'm happy that today we are deliberating on one of the important issues, which is of course price. We have been observing, or we have witnessing the kind of vegetation which the farmer communities are growing. Of course, there could be a little bit of politics. We are not talking about the politics, but there is genuine reason that the price should be, at least the MSP should be able to recover, or should be sufficient enough to meet its expenses plus income, because you'll see the costs are increasing, uncertainty is mounting, and so under such circumstances, what kind of policy mechanism we should have in place so that they lead a decent life and they are assured that they are going to get the price, that at least the income that is required in order to meet the minimum standard of living. So I once again welcome Professor Sekhar. I think this is his, that's what he told me, this is his first visit to Gokhale Institute. So on behalf of my colleagues and on my personal behalf, I extend a warm welcome to you. I'm sure people are going to get benefited from your talk, and a lot of insight we are going to get, which not only will benefit the student but also the faculties and other researchers. So without taking much of the time, we have another 1.5 So I wish the particular program success, and we should, that's what I was telling, I think we should organize in a bigger and greater scale, so that at least one day workshop kind of thing where we can celebrate even the good practices, or you can recognize farmers who has contributed significantly to the development of the agriculture sector. I think maybe next time we'll keep that in mind. But wish all the farmers a happy Farmers Day on this occasion, and hope the days are going to be brighter, and when we are becoming, when we are dreaming to become a developed economy by 2027, sure, as research community, as government, we also need to take care of the farmers so that they will become farmers of a developed economy. So thank you very much, and hope delivery is going to be more interactive, and thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dash, for welcoming our guests and setting the stage for the lecture. It is now my privilege to introduce our distinguished guest speaker for today's lecture. Professor C.S.E. Sekhar is currently Professor and Head of the Agro Economic Research Unit at the Institute of Economic Growth, University of Delhi. He holds a PhD in Economics from the Delhi School of Economics and also an LLB from the University of Delhi. He has also served as the Honorary Director of the Agricultural Economics Research Center at the University of Delhi from 2017 to 2019, contributing significantly to policy-oriented agricultural research during his tenure. Professor Sekhar is a widely respected scholar in the field of agricultural growth and development. His research spans critical areas such as market structure and price formation in agricultural markets, food security, agricultural trade, rural development, developed economics, and law and economics. His academic record includes over 40 research articles published in leading peer-reviewed journals, along with numerous working papers, book chapters, policy reports, and widely read media articles. Beyond academia, he has also served on several government committees, including as the chairman of the High-Level Technical Committee on Edible Oils at NITI Aayog in 2023. And he is also a recipient of many prestigious awards, such as the Fulbright Nehru Senior Research Fellowship, the Exim Bank Award, and the D.K. Desai Award for Outstanding Research. Today, Professor Sekhar will speak on price policy support for Indian farmers, a reality check, and the way forward. Professor Sekhar, we are very delighted to have you here with us today, and we look forward to your insights on this topic.
Thank you, Shweta, for a very generous introduction. I'm really very happy to be in Gokhale, particularly interacting with students on a day of really very important day like Farmers' Day. And as you have already learned, Farmers' Day is celebrated on the birth anniversary of Chaudhary Charan Singh, who is the former Prime Minister of India, who has worked tirelessly for improving the lot of the farmers. So it's a very important occasion, and I'm really thrilled, and I thank the Agro Economic Research Center of Gokhale for inviting me here. Now today I'll be focusing mainly on the output price policy for farmers, how much it has actually helped the farmers, which crops it has helped, and even there, what is the share of the farmers in those gains. That's what I'm going to focus a bit on that. And then I'll also touch upon some of the alternative ways in which we can actually help farmers. What are the alternative ways to the existing output price policy, so that the farmers can get some remunerative price or income from their farming activities. And finally, I'll probably tee off with a sort of a small recommendatory framework. And that is for us to actually today we can deliberate on that. What are the better instruments for supporting farmers? So, can I use this for slides? Now, the current system of price support and food subsidy, most of you who are working in agriculture or rather studying agricultural economics here may be aware of. The present system of output price support revolves around MSP procurement. An MSP system presently covers 23 crops, although effective procurement is only for wheat and rice. So that we have to understand. And broadly, the system is something like this. The government announces an MSP, minimum support price, just before the sowing season, and then they procure some of these crops, particularly rice and wheat, from the farmers, and then they store it in their public storage systems, and then they distribute it through the public distribution system to the needy consumers at a subsidized price. So there are several activities involved in this. First, you buy from the farmers at the minimum support price, then you store it in your own godowns of FCI, and then you distribute it. So there is a cost involved at every stage. So the total cost that is involved in this, buying from the farmer, then storing it and distributing it to the final consumer, that is called the economic cost. That entire thing is called the economic cost. And then the consumer is provided food grains at a much subsidized price through the fair price shops, which is called the issue price. So you have on the one side economic cost, then on the consumer side it is the issue price, and the difference between those two constitutes the food subsidy. Now what I have done in this is mostly the beneficiary crops of this whole system of MSP and procurement have been rice and wheat. For a long time, from 1966 to be precise, till now, it is these two crops which have mainly benefited from this MSP and procurement, particularly in some major states like Punjab, Haryana, Coastal Andhra Pradesh, West Uttar Pradesh, and these are the regions which benefited. But even in these crops, there is absolutely no idea as to how much, because you have seen that the cost minus the price is the total subsidy. So, if the cost is way above the market price, okay, the MSP is way above the market price, then the difference between the MSP and the market price is the benefit that the producer is getting. And if the market price is way above the final consumer price, then the difference between market price and the consumer price is what the consumer is getting. So far there has not been any idea about how much of this these gains are shared by these producers and consumers. So in a recent paper with one of my colleagues, we have attempted this, and I am going to discuss that briefly. So this is the total food subsidy. As you can see, the first three FS is the food subsidy, MSP is the minimum support price, then PI is the procurement incidentals, that is the administrative costs of procuring grains from farmers, and DC is the distribution charges. So buying at MSP plus the administrative costs plus the storage distribution costs, these are all on the cost side. Then minus the CIP, which is the central issue price, is the total food subsidy. Now what we do is we simply, because as I have already told you, the difference between the MSP and the market price is the gain to the producer, and the difference between the market price and the consumer price is the gain to the consumer. So what we have done is we just add and subtract market price to this equation and rearrange the terms, and you get it simple algebraic expression. Then in equation 2, what you see is MSP minus MP is the gain to the producer, that is a producer surplus you can call it, and MP minus CIP is the consumer surplus, and the last term PI plus DC constitutes the all other administrative costs, storage costs. So as I told you, the terms in first and second parenthesis constitute the subsidy to producers and consumers. So we are basically interested in that share. So in case of rice, this is slightly different, because in rice what happens is that what is bought from the farmers is paddy, and then it is milled, converted into rice, and then sold to the consumers at a subsidized price. The rice is sold at a subsidized price to the consumers. So this equation is slightly different in the sense that what we do is we add the market price of paddy to equation 3 and rearrange the terms, again we will get the same thing. Okay, this is the final thing. The MSP of paddy minus market price of paddy is the gain to the producers, and market price of paddy minus plus paddy milling cost minus consumer central issue price of rice. This will constitute the gain to the consumers, because you buy paddy at a particular price, then you mill it, so that is the total cost of converting paddy into rice. So that is the cost. That minus the CIP is what is the gain to the consumer. So effectively the first term is the producer subsidy, the second is the consumer subsidy, and the final term is the again the administrative costs or all other costs. So now just to give you a brief idea about, because we are actually looking at the prices and the differences between MSP and prices, just in this slide I am providing you the difference between the farmhouse price and MSP. So normally MSP is meant to benefit farmers immediately after the harvest, because immediately after the harvest what happens is that a lot of produce comes into the markets, then the prices get depressed. So MSP is supposed to give you that cushion where you can actually sell to the government agencies at a slightly higher price, and that is the benefit to the farmers. So in 2018-19 our MSP system has slightly undergone a difference. Earlier the MSP used to be fixed upon based on the paid out cost A2 plus F. From 2018-19 what they have done is they have done added a 50% margin to that. So now whatever cost that is incurred on account of seeds, fertilizer and all that the farmer incurs, that plus his family labor cost, to that a 50% margin is added. So if he incurs a cost of total of 100 rupees, then 50 rupees is added to that, and 150 is the MSP. So from 2018-19 the MSP got hiked to a higher level. So what we did is we have just taken the price all over the main states where paddy is procured from, that is more than 10% of total procurement is happening from a state, then that is called a high procurement. That's what we have considered as. So in those states what is the situation? As you can see, from 2018-19 onwards, in case of paddy, the first column, the difference between the farmhouse price and MSP has turned negative. That means the farmhouse price has actually fallen below the MSP. This is what we expect when the MSP is hiked, right? So normally the MSP is here, then the farmhouse price falls here, then it covers. But what was happening in the earlier years in 2014-15 to 16-17 was the farmhouse prices were not really falling below MSP. So MSP was not giving much of a cushion till 2017-18. But after 2018-19, when the MSP has been increased, then the farmers have started benefiting in some way in these high procurement states. If you see the wheat, it's not much of a difference, but wheat also after 2018-19, the farmers' prices are lower than the MSP. So MSP has started giving some benefit to the farmers after it has been hiked in 2018-19. Even in the low procurement states, it's the same situation. Mostly the farmhouse prices which were nearer to the MSP in the earlier years have started falling where they are much below the MSP. So MSP has, so what this shows is that MSP has started giving some benefit to farmers after it has been hiked in 2018. Now this is the distribution. So we have seen that it has actually benefited in the recent years. It was not so beneficial in the earlier years. But overall, what is the situation? If you take the entire 2016, 17 to 22, 23, what is the distribution of gains between producers, consumers, and other costs? So you will see that producers all over India, if you take the market price to over the entire period, entire year, then it appears that the farmers are not actually benefiting much from the MSP because their actually, does this highlighter work? Okay, it is the small blue segment that you see, -3%. This is the thing that the producers are getting over a period of time. It appears that the main benefit of this whole PDS system and the procurement and MSP system is going to consumers. If you see the consumer subsidy, it is huge. It is almost like 81%. Whereas the producers are actually at a net loss. And the net loss means, of course, in some states like Punjab and Haryana and other places, they are actually benefiting. But farmers would have been better off not selling to the government and probably relying on the market better because the market prices were slightly higher than the MSP as far as the producers were concerned. So this consumer subsidy is an overwhelming thing that is a feature of this MSP procurement system. And sadly, even the administrative costs and the distribution costs are nearly 21%. So that's a huge chunk. Almost 1/5 of your cost is incurred on administrator as well as the distribution and marketing costs. This is as far as the wheat is concerned. Now, this is for the overall period, 2016, 17 to 2023. So what we did is we have tried to see, is it because of this, is it because of one particular year that this whole distribution got distorted? So we have done the similar exercise for each year. Again, this picture is the same. So consumers seem to be benefiting a lot more from this system than the farmers. Farmers are, in some years there may be positive benefits to the farmers, but overall, if you take the country as a whole and market prices over the entire year, not just the farmers' prices, it appears that the farmers are not really benefiting much from this system as far as wheat is concerned. Then the similar situation emerges in case of rice also. In rice it is slightly better that rice farmers, the market's price is almost same as MSP, that's why you get only 1% gain to the farmers, and large gain of 79% is accruing to the consumers, and about 20%, again 1/5 of the total cost is towards marketing and distribution. And again, year-wise when we see, it's the same situation. So overall, summing up, what it shows us is that farmers have not benefited from this system as much as the consumers. Consumers have benefited in a major way, almost like 75-80% in case of wheat and rice, whereas the farmers have not benefited that much. Why is this? This is because our economic cost is somewhere around more than 25 rupees in case of wheat and rice, whereas we have been distributing it through the fair price shops at the price of 2 rupees and 3 rupees, 2 rupees for wheat and 3 rupees for rice. That was till 2023. So you can see the difference. Somewhere around 25 minus 2 or 30 minus 3 is the kind of subsidy that is going to consumers of the previous system. So their subsidy is coming up to be this large mainly because of our issue prices being so low. And from 23 December, if I am not mistaken, December was the month, then they have completely done away with even this 2 rupees, 3 rupees also. Now it is completely free. So if we do this exercise again with the without stopping at 2023 and also include the last 2 years, it will be even higher. So the consumer subsidy will be even higher. So then the next thing what we did is, okay, farmers may not be benefiting from this system as producers, but many of the small farmers are also net consumers, right? They don't produce as much as they buy from the market also. So they are net consumers. So are they benefiting as net consumers from this PDS system? That is another thing that we have looked at. So even that is good if they are actually benefiting from that. So to explore this, what we have done is, we have analyzed the latest land category based data on consumption from the Household Consumer Expenditure Survey of 22-23. We have taken this Household Consumption Expenditure Survey data, and we have actually looked at each of the household, whether that person is falling into small and marginal farmer, which category is he falling, and how much is he relying on the public distribution system, PDS system, to understand how much is he gaining as a consumer from this system. So this is what it appears. So mostly across all land categories, you can see that the dependence on PDS is much higher in case of rice, whereas in case of wheat it is much lower. And this is across land categories. For rice it is much more, and this is also understandable because rice is the staple food across eastern India, southern India, where a lot of poverty and poorer states are located. So that is the thing, and wheat consuming states are relatively better off in terms of so I think this graph is very illustrative. Then let me explain these categories. Landless is, we have taken landless as somebody who has a land of less than 0.01 hectares. It is not completely landless. And then marginal is 0 to 1, and 1 to 2 is small. So up to 2 we can consider as landless, marginal, small. We have clubbed and then made one category, and then semi-medium, medium and large and all those things we have made another category, just to see how the small versus the relatively large farmers are faring. Here we see this thing. So I want you to focus on the blue and the orange parts of this, each of these graphs across states. So as you can see, a large number of farmers in both the small farmers are depending on PDS as expected. That means small farmers who have a land holding of less than 2 hectares are depending on PDS relatively more than the larger farmers. Of course, this is, across the states this is the pattern, except in Assam and West Bengal, where you see that the small farmers are not really depending that much on PDS, whereas the larger farmers are depending more on PDS. So there are some differences in case of rice across states, that is particularly in Assam and West Bengal, and this is probably because of underreporting in the NSSO data. I am not very sure. This needs to be looked at more carefully by these two states. Small farmers means basically farmers with less than 2 hectares are not depending on PDS to the same extent as the larger farmers. In wheat it is slightly uniform across states. So small farmers, which is the green bar, is much longer than the blue bar. Okay. So as you can see across states, the small farmers are depending a lot more on the PDS system. So what comes out from this is that if you see the last one, if you see the second last bar, if you see the second last bar in rice, the grey one at the top, it shows 37%. Okay, so that means overall across the states, 37% of the farmers are depending on PDS for rice. Okay? So if there are 100 farmers, then farming households, then only 37 are actually depending on the PDS in case of rice. Similarly, when you come to wheat, if you see the second last bar, all India, you will see that it is only 24%, that is the yellow part of the bar, second last bar, the yellow part. 24% are depending on PDS for wheat. That means 37% there and 24%. So more than 2/3 are actually not depending on PDS for their consumption, even among the farming. That means even as net consumers, they are probably not benefiting to the extent that they should have. So as producers, we have seen they have very little benefit from this whole PDS system. As consumers also, they don't seem to be depending much on the PDS for their consumption. So that means this system as a whole is really, at this moment, it does not seem to benefit farmers as producers or as consumers. That's the point that I'm trying to make. This is across India. There are some states, this is not to deny, that in some states, in some pockets, the farmers are actually benefiting as producers, like Punjab, Haryana, other places, or even Madhya Pradesh. But if you take the whole of India and then you see them, then it appears that they are not really. So what are the alternative ways of support? So we all want to see farmers' income rise, and price is one of the better mechanisms. So if it is confined to wheat and rice mostly, and even there the gains are not much either as producer or consumer, then what are the alternatives? Are there any alternative ways of doing that? So the first is the deficiency payments. So what is deficiency payments? Deficiency payments is that in the earlier system that we have seen MSP procurement, so there is an MSP that is announced, then the government actually buys from them and stores and distributes. Instead of that, in this system, an MSP is announced, but the government does not buy from the farmer. They say, okay, you go and sell in the market. So for example, the MSP is 100 for paddy, and the farmer is allowed to sell in the market, and he gets a price of say 80 rupees. Then the remaining, the difference between 100 minus 80, which is 20, is reimbursed directly to the farmer. So this is what is called the difference. So what is the advantage of this system? The advantage of this system is that government need not procure, store it, and then distribute it. So all those 20%, 21% that we have seen earlier in on account of other costs, distribution, procurement, those are saved. That is one important thing. Number two, whatever MSP you have announced, so in that a part of it is met by the market itself. So only the difference you will have to meet. So the fiscal burden also will be much less in deficiency payments. So for example, if you have announced an MSP of 100 rupees, then if the government buys, it has to buy at 100 rupees. But suppose if you allow the farmer to sell in the market, he gets 80 rupees from the market and only 20 rupees he will have to pay. So that's the way. So this is then the other system is, okay, price is only an instrument to increase his income or augment his income. But what are we interested? We are interested in actually taking care of his income, protecting his income. Then why use price? Why not directly transfer income? What is the difference? If you announce a price and ask the producer to come and sell at that price, then there is a problem that the producer has to produce that first and then bring it to the public agencies or to the market. So whenever you announce an MSP, you are saying that, okay, you only if you produce this, you will get this price. But in case of direct income transfers, what is the idea is that there are many countries which are following this, including US and China, where the idea is that, okay, you have a particular cost of production in producing. Suppose somebody is producing wheat, I am producing rice, you are producing something else. So you take a weighted average of cost of production of all these crops, and then a 50% or some percentage of it you directly give to the farmer after. You tell him that this is your basic income. Regardless of what you grow and how you grow it, you are going to get this income. and then you looking at the market, whatever you can sell, you just produce that. So a part of the cost of its production is already made as a lump sum payment to him. So this is what is called the direct transfers. So this is the second. The third is what many scholars like I think one of the Indian scholars who has been arguing on this is Professor Ashok Gulati, who has been saying that you just free up the market so that let markets take care of it. So that is another idea. But then it has a lot will depend if you open up the markets. A lot will depend on how perfect or imperfect the markets are. Both open the output markets as well as the factor markets. So what we're going to do is actually I'm not going to go into the detailed methodology of how we have arrived at this. Actually there is a 22 paper of mine, price or income support to farmers in EPW. So where we have done what are the fiscal costs involved in each of these things, in each of the present MSP plus procurement system and the efficiency payments. Let me just explain it. So the first thing is, here, right now, we are procuring only wheat and rice, right? And the farmers want this system to be expanded to cover all the 23 crops. So then what is the first problem? The first problem is, if you start procuring everything, then the first problem is with storage. Where will you store them? Because physically you Thank you. So the first problem with this is that if you physically procure, where will you store? So you need godowns and all kinds of facilities for that. So when you look at the storage that is presently available with the central and state governments, you will, one can find that it can at most accommodate 30% of the marketable surplus. So that means if 100 is the market surplus, so only 30 can be stored in the government godowns. So we have at most, with all the good intentions and also the money, we can only store 30%. So this first part is, suppose we continue with the present system of wheat and rice procurement, which is roughly around 30% of the total production is being procured right now. So we continue with that and also procure other crops also, 30% of the other crops, store them, and then if you only procure 30%, what will happen to the remaining 70%? So you will have to cover that, right? Then for the remaining 70%, you will have to make the deficiency payments. That means you tell the farmer, okay, we cannot buy and store it on our account. So you go and sell it in the market. Whatever you get, if it is lower than the MSP, we will reimburse that. So 30% through procurement and 70% through deficiency payments. So for all the costs. So this is the cost, that is 4,83,750. Here what am I taking? The MSP is fixed as per A2 plus FL plus 50%. That is the present MSP system. And the production that I am taking is 22-23 production. So if the 22-23 production is of all the crops is 100, and if I can only store 30, then 70 is reimbursed through deficiency. That's the cost. The cost is 4,83,759 crores that you incur. Then the next thing is, this bar is, okay, you have rice and you continue with this procurement of rice and wheat, but for other crops you don't follow this 30% procurement. You make all 100% deficiency payment, because procuring means procuring, storing and distributing will involve higher cost, economic cost. So, but if you make a deficiency payment, it will be much lesser. So, with wheat and rice, we will continue with the present system, but the remaining crops will only make deficiency payments. So, if that is the case, then what is the cost? So, this will be the cost. And third is, even rice and wheat we will not procure. We will just make deficiency payments for everything. We are not. And then what will happen to the PDS system? Suppose if the farmer sells everything in the market and then we make deficiency payments even for rice and wheat, then what will happen to our PDS? PDS we'll have to buy from the market then. So that system has to be there. So the third is the full deficiency payments for all crops, including rice and wheat, will come to 1,72,030. And finally, direct payments. Direct payments means here the idea is that in our microeconomic theory from basic textbook economics, what we learn is that a producer continues to produce as long as the price covers his variable costs, minimum costs. So if this is A2 plus FL plus 50 is the basic minimum cost, because A2 is the cost that he's spending on seeds, fertilizers and all the paid out costs. FL is the family labor, imputed value of family labor. If suppose he is using 4 people, then what will be their wages, and that will be added plus 50%. This is the paid out cost for the farmer. So none of his imputed costs like his rent on his own land and all those things are not taken care of, only the paid out cost. So this is the basic cost that we have in mind in microeconomic theory. So what we do is, based on this, if we have to cover this cost for the entire country, all the farmers, all the crops, then the cost will come to 2,93,086. There is an elaborate methodology of, I am not going to go into that, because what we have, I'll explain it briefly. What we have done is, for example, paddy is there. Paddy is grown in say 9 states. So what we do is, we take the cost of production of each of these states and then use the area under paddy in that state as a weight, the share of weight. So those weighted average of cost of production of all these states will give you the cost of production of paddy. Okay. Similarly, you arrive at for all the 23 crops, okay, which are the major growing states, and then once you have a figure for each of these crops, then use the same methodology at the national level. Suppose in the GCA, each of these crops have some share, so use that share as weight and then combine this cost of production and get it. So that is the methodology that we have used. If you are interested, you can see the paper. So the figure comes to 2,93,086. Now next is, now we come to the thing that the farmers are demanding. What are the farmers demanding? Farmers are demanding that you guys are fixing the MSP based on A2 plus FL plus 50%. That's not what we want. That doesn't cover all our costs. So what you should do is C2 plus 50%. C2 is basically, it includes not only the paid out cost, but also the imputed cost. That is, imputed cost means basically he's using his own land for production. So if you had actually taken it on lease, then what he would have incurred. And similarly, the interest on his working capital, fixed capital, all those things are included in this. So every
C2 plus 50%, always is market, it will drop market.
exactly,
Always.
it's huge.
Government, huge entire burden will be on government.
Absolutely. I mean, you can see the numbers. I mean, when we do this, it's huge. It's ridiculously huge. That means if we do the current system, even if we make deficiency payments for all the other crops and continue with the wheat, only procurement of wheat and rice, then you will end up with something like 5 lakh crores per annum. This is the yearly expenditure that we are looking at. So all the corresponding bars are much higher compared to the other one, the earlier one, because this C2 plus 50% is a very extremely high number. Now these are the different ways of supporting farmers through public interventions. Then what if we leave it completely to the markets? Suppose we say, okay, from tomorrow there will not be any support from the market. So you go and sell, and according to supply demand, you will get whatever it is. Then the question comes, what is the structure of our markets? So that we have to look at. So on the output side, so we have very different kind of market structure. So many of you must have heard about this APMCs. The APMCs are the agricultural produce marketing committees, and these are the bodies which are formed under APMR, Agricultural Produce Markets Regulation Acts. These regulation acts came in the 60s and 70s in various states, and what these acts actually done is, in every state, the entire region is divided into notified areas. Okay, under each agriculture produce market company. In that notified area, so no trader from outside can enter and operate in that area if he doesn't have a license. So every area, every committee, so the trader has to have a license for operating in that particular small area. So likewise, every state is divided into these various committees. And farmers also cannot sell anything other than their own produce. Suppose I am a farmer and you are also a farmer, and I buy from you at a lower price and then come to the APMC to sell it. That I cannot do, because only my self-produced produce can be sold in the APMC. So there are various restrictions that have been put in place. But what has this done? What has this done is that this hasn't affected the farmers selling everywhere. They have continued to sell outside the APMC markets also. But what it has done is it has stopped investment in markets, because no bigger private player would venture into any agricultural produce marketing, because he needs multiple licenses. If a state has 10 APMCs or 15 APMCs, he needs license in everything, and he has to pay the fee for every market, and this has increased the transaction costs of the private players so much that the private investment there's hardly any private investment in agriculture market as a result of this. And you'll be surprised that the private corporate investment is less than 1%, it is 0.1% as of 2020-21. So that's the level of investment that we have in agriculture. So this APMC markets and the government has been trying to do this. In fact, they have brought in a 2017 Model APMC Act, and in which they tried to relax many of these things and ask the states to enact these laws. But many states have not done that. So as a result, what the government did is in 2020 they brought those farm laws. Many of you may have been aware of these farm laws, and those farm laws were bitterly resisted by farmers, mainly from Punjab, Haryana states, because they had a lot to lose because of that. So ultimately those farm laws were repealed. So as of today, we have about 7,200 regulated markets, whereas our need is around 41,000 according to the Farmers Commission. So 1/6 of that. Even the area covered, average area served by this regulated market is around 480 square kilometers, and the recommendation is 80 square kilometers. That means we are again 1/6 of that. So there are hardly any regulated markets which are accessible to the farmers. So these are all from the public, these figures, that everything that I am quoting here are from the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Agriculture, which has come up with this report as to how we should reform the agriculture market. So on the output side, this is the status of ag markets. So you can see right at the bottom, the Farm Acts of 2000 tried to address this, but had to be repealed in the face of large-scale agitation by farmers from few states. I'm not saying that those farmers are not justified, because they had a lot to lose, so they protested. It's all natural. So then that is on the output side, output markets. What about the factor markets? Factor markets for land, labor, and capital also appear to be far from perfect. In fact, there's a lot of literature. If you see the second part, in fact, every major economist of India, like Amartya Sen, Ashok Rudra, Bhagavati, Jagdish Bhagavati, Sukhmay Chakravarti, T.S. Srinivasan, Pranab Bhartan, everyone has worked on this issue. In fact, recently what we did is, in fact, all of them have concluded, that was in 60s, 70s, 80s, that Indian factor markets appear to be largely imperfect, particularly because of land and labor markets. Then recently what one of my colleagues have done is there are 2 papers in 23 and 24 in Development Policy Review and also recently in a rated volume, where we have looked at this issue again with new data. Why? Because in 2007-8 we had Manrega. Right? Mainly what Amartya Sen said is the factor markets are mainly imperfect because of the imperfections in the labor market. What are those imperfections? On small farms, they have a lot of labor which cannot move into other occupations because their skill sets are low. They cannot also augment land, they can't buy land or lease in land because of capital constraints. So they have a problem with capital, and because of the skills they can't move out. So as a result, on small farms there is a lot of labor trapped there. Because they are trapped there, so as students of economics, you all know, for every labor there is very little capital available or land available there. So the land productivity is higher, but the labor productivity is higher, land productivity. So this way, this has led to imperfections in the all the markets. So this is what Sen, this is called the labor dualism theory. So what we did is recently after Manrega, at least even the unskilled labor should be able to move out to certain occupy or wage labor. They need not necessarily be trapped on their farm. So we tried to look at it again with newer data across various states. But what we found is it is still the case, and inverse relationship still exists. So these imperfections in factor markets appear to be very high, and even recently, very recently, Srijit Mishra, earlier of IJDR, he has published a very good paper in Agricultural Economics, Singh et al. 2025 paper. In that, they again show that these imperfections in factor markets are still there, but of course they are slowly coming down, but they are still. So on the output side as well as on the factor market side, the markets don't seem to be perfect. So now coming quickly to the conclusions. So the benefits of the current system don't appear to benefit the farmers much, and the major beneficiaries are consumers. However, even as net consumers also, these farmers don't seem to be benefiting much because their utilization rates are very low, 38% for rice and 25% for wheat. Their utilization rates of PDS are very low. So that is the issue. And direct income transfers also may not be fiscally prudent either because we have seen the costs. In fact, direct income transfers have also, the fiscal costs have gone up because the cost of production has increased quite a bit in the recent past. And there are constraints for free markets on factor markets as well as output side. But each of these instruments, whether it is deficiency payments, direct payments, or MSP procurement, they all have their merits and demerits. So given that each instrument has certain merits and demerits, I think a judicious mix of policy instruments is what is needed. And this is completely my take. You can dispute that or anything. So suppose for a particular crop combination, we have concerns that we need high production, and also we have a lot of PDS requirement. And we also at the same time we need to improve farmers' income, and there is resource sustainability issue also, water integrity, water tables. If all these three concerns are yes, then I think the present MSP plus procurement only in green zones. What are green zones? Green zones means basically you map the entire country and see what is the groundwater level and all the other natural resource endowments in those regions. And then for each region you map out what are the crops that are suitable. So you give whatever support you want to give only in the green zones where those crops are suitable. So this is actually the government is presently seized of this. They are trying to do some such exercise. Once they actually can map the entire country to green, red zones. Red zones means in a particular, suppose there is a red zone for paddy. Some states say X is marked as red zone for paddy. That means in that zone you cannot grow paddy without degrading the natural resources. So some such exercise is coming up. So then this entire policy support should be only in the green zones. Then second is we have say domestic production concerns or PDS concerns, and we also need farmers' income also needs to be improved. But resource sustainability issues are not that severe. For example, pulses and millets and stuff like that. In those cases, then pulses, oil seeds, then deficiency payments is something that can be looked at. And finally, if we have only farmers' income as the main policy concern and other concerns are not that binding, then probably we can go for a combination of deficiency payments and direct income transfers. So there has to be a sort of a judicious mix of these instruments. That's what. So with that, I'll stop. So we can.